The World Food Programme has announced that it has officially run out of food in the Gaza Strip. Israel has made its intentions for the day after crystal clear. It wants to occupy and maintain military control over the Strip. It wants to cleanse it of as many of the survivors of the genocide as possible. And it wants to maintain its control over the territory that it has taken in both Lebanon and Syria over the long term. In fact, Israeli officials have started talking about wanting to partition Syria. The onslaught of Israel on Palestinians and Arab life, organization and resistance over the last 18 months has been devastating beyond words. The current period we are living through will be remembered as a period of expansion of Israel's settler colonial process, of strengthening of Western imperialism in the region, and of defeat both of the Palestinian people and the wider Arab world. Israel is aggressively redrawing the status quo in the region. Out of this defeat, however, new contradictions will continue to emerge, contradictions from which the long struggle for liberation of both Palestine and the region will burst forth once more. The situation in Gaza has reached yet again new depths. The official death toll by the mid of April 2025 was over 50,000, and about 90% of the Strip's entire population had been displaced. The actual death toll, however, is likely to be much higher. As early as September 2024, estimates projected that over 300,000 people would die. The situation since then has become so much worse. MSF has described the whole of Gaza as a mass grave. Even before the latest announcement, all bakeries in Gaza had been forced to close. Baby formula ran out, and children in Gaza were receiving less than one meal a day. Access to water has been turned into what one NGO called a weapon of war, as Israel turns off electricity and fuel to the Strip, so crucial to the desalination of water. The genocide has moved from primarily being a military campaign of massacre after massacre to the slow mass murder through starvation. Words fail to describe such a hell. Israel's vision of the day after is now clear. Much like in the West Bank before, it is in the process of creating small Bantustans divided by Israeli-controlled territory and settlements, the so-called Netzarim, Philadelphi and Morag corridors, named after previously existing settlements in the Gaza Strip. The mass expulsion and starvation campaign is designed to both thin out the Palestinian population and force it into dramatically smaller areas away from the most arable lands, such as those between Rafah and Khan Yunis. Israel's assault has not been limited to Gaza either. It expanded its military operations into both Lebanon and Syria, as well as Yemen, where it also rained fire on civilians, indiscriminately destroyed both military and civilian infrastructure, and seized large swathes of its neighbors' territory. In doing so, Israel has delivered a major victory to US imperialism in the region, weakening Iran and its allies' counterpower in the region, and expanded its own settler colonial control. In both countries, Lebanon and Syria, Israeli officials are not only announcing loudly that they will remain quote-unquote indefinitely, building military bases and carrying out regular airstrikes, but they are also designating wider zones of influence where they are unilaterally imposing demilitarization. In the West Bank, Israel turned up its campaign of terror well before the 7th of October 2023. Since then, there have been 1,850 incidents of settler attacks, as well as at least 860 murders of Palestinians, of which 177 were children. Simultaneously, in the space of a year, 20,000 new settlement units have been established in the territory, and 49 new outposts have been established. Most strikingly, Israel is moving to violently redraw the status quo when it comes to Palestinian refugees, the 7 million Palestinians who are living reminders of Israel's past campaigns of ethnic cleansing and the need for future redress. Israel has outlawed UNRWA, which has allowed it to launch a direct assault on key Palestinian refugee services like healthcare, schools, and welfare provisions. At the same time, Israel is militarily cleansing the most important refugee camps across the West Bank. So far, at least 40,000 people have been expelled in this process, and it shows no sign of abating. In the face of such overwhelming defeat, it is difficult not to be swallowed by despair. It appears that nothing will push the United States and its Western junior partners to pull the plug on the enormous amount of support that they are giving Israel, militarily, diplomatically, and economically. It is clear for the world to see that a genocide carried out against the Palestinian people is, for our rulers, a price worth paying for maintaining their power and influence in such a strategically key area in the world economy, especially in a period of weakening US power. They lie to our faces and keep the horror going. Yet, it would be a mistake to lose hope. On the one hand, across the Western world, people are fighting back and standing with the Palestinian people against our rulers. The BDS movement, the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, has grown exponentially. Monster demonstrations have rocked the capitals of the former colonial metropoles, and students have refused to accept that their universities continue to be complicit with apartheid and genocide. Most importantly, workers and unions have started mobilizing their collective economic power to force a stark choice upon our ruling classes: either end your support for Israel or face economic chaos. Crucially, these actions are not limited to the West either. They are taking place across the Middle East and North Africa. Most recently, Moroccan dock workers blocked a mass shipment of US fighter jets to Israel, and this is a crucial development. The Moroccan crown has been a key actor in the normalization process with Israel. It has not only increased its own military contracts with the country, but even allowed Israel's Elbit Systems to open a factory on its national soil. These deals are deeply unpopular with the Moroccan population, and the fact that this anger is spilling out into the streets and workplaces of the kingdom, despite the very real dangers of violent repression, is huge. And Moroccans are not alone. Also in Jordan and Egypt, two neighboring states of Israel who have both spearheaded normalization and increased their trade relations throughout the genocide, also in those countries popular resistance grows. In Jordan, major and regular protests have taken place throughout the genocide, demanding an end to the peace treaty between the countries and the cutting of all economic and diplomatic relations. In response, the Hashemite crown has unleashed a campaign of repression, most recently banning the Muslim Brotherhood under the laughable guise of foiling a plot sponsored by the group. In Egypt, where repression has been much more severe and continuous, people still continue to take the rare opportunities that present themselves to show their rejection of their government's complicity in Israel's crimes. The development of this regional mass movements, which target not only Israel, but also the Arab reactionary regimes that support it, are crucial to the liberation of Palestine. Indeed, the Palestinian left has emphasized from the 1960s onwards that the liberation of Palestine would be intimately linked to the liberation of the region as a whole. On the one hand, this stemmed from the regional character of Zionism, a military base that can repress challenges to Western control and influence the region. Israel's actions across the Levant for the last 18 months are a contemporary illustration of this process. On the other hand, it was also an acknowledgement of the class relations in Palestine itself. Israeli workers are profoundly committed to the settler colonial project, including its current genocidal iteration, and have often been at the forefront of pushing it further. They are therefore not a credible participant or even ally in the liberation of Palestine. Palestinians, on the other hand, are excluded from the core of the Israeli economy, and their presence is limited to such peripheral sectors of the economy as construction, agriculture, or the service industries. The internal balance of forces is therefore not in their favor. Unlike, for example, South African, Kenyan, or Algerian workers, they are not in a position to shut down the settler colonial economy in order to achieve their liberation. It is therefore necessary for the Palestinians to struggle alongside the masses of the wider region for liberation from Western imperialism, local ruling classes, and Israeli settler colonialism. Ghassan Kanafani, the Palestinian revolutionary author and theorist, famously summed this alliance up as the enemy trinity, as he called it, that the Palestinians face, and which he considered to be the principal threat to their liberation. Similarly, Jabra Nicola, also a Palestinian Marxist thinker and revolutionary activist, wrote that, quote, "The struggle against imperialism, inseparable from all democratic struggles, can only be a struggle against all the existent dominant classes and regimes in the region." Both men were writing in the 1970s, in the wake of another regional defeat, but their analytical insights remain crucial to guide us through the darkness of the present. In the words of George Habash, Kanafani's comrade, "The road to Jerusalem goes through the capitals of the Arab world." We had a taste of what this might mean in 2011, when the masses of the region rose up in an extraordinary revolutionary wave. Everywhere, from Tunisia to Syria, from Bahrain to Egypt, people connected their liberation to that of the Palestinians and demanded an end to the normalization and Arab inaction. Those revolutions had their roots in the solidarity movement with the Second Palestinian Intifada. It was during those demonstrations in solidarity with the Palestinian people that the first slogans demanding the fall of the regimes in the Arab world were heard. Now, a decade and a half later, the horror of the Israeli genocide in Gaza and Arab complicity is re-energizing defeated and repressed mass movements across the region. Their growth and their development remains the key to a free Palestine.